सारे रंग हैं, सारे संग हैं। सलामत रहे, तू रोशन रहे, है सबकी दुआ दिल्ली।
Hello and welcome to a show that salutes the Sultans of Delhi. This is Delhi Dil Se. We bring to you all the multi-dimensional, multicultural melting pot that is Delhi through some of its most loved and respected personalities. Joining me today is a man with revolutionary ideas about India's future. Co-founder and ex-CEO of Infosys Technologies, he is now heading the Government of India's Technology Committee and is the chairman of the new Unique Identification Authority of India. Who doesn't know Nandan Nilekani? Sir, thank you so much for joining us on
Thank you, Minnie. Thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, very welcome. And there's so many questions that we need to ask you that I don't think we have the luxury of time. But we'll start with the most obvious one, which is Aadhaar, which is now being implemented by the Unique Identification Authority of India. It's your baby, it's your concept. Tell me, how did you think about this?
Well, actually, it was really the project of the Government of India. So the Government of India has been planning this project to give a unique identity to every resident of India, right, way back from 2006.
Right.
So I was invited by the Prime Minister to lead this project in 2009.
Right.
And our goal is to give every Indian resident a unique ID. And so far, we have given over 32 crore people an ID and enrolled about 37 crore people around the country.
My goodness, so soon it's going to be imperative for every Indian to have an Aadhaar card.
It's an Aadhaar number, which happens to be also a card, but the main value is the number. But ultimately, yes, we want every Indian to enroll, not just because they have to, but because they get a lot of benefits and services from that.
Right, and Aadhaar by its very meaning means the basis. So
yes, it's the foundation.
So are you looking at giving every Indian a sort of identity and a foundation?
Yes. What happens in India often is that many people don't have a birth certificate or they don't have any proof of their ID.
That's right.
And increasingly with the kind of migration which is happening, they're unable to prove who they are to any agency that has to provide a service. So they get locked out of many things.
Correct.
So Aadhaar is really like a gateway for people to get access to all kinds of services, and that's what we plan to will happen.
That's right.
And already has started happening for many people.
Yep. You mentioned one of the benefits that the citizens are going to get, which is getting a basic identification. But how else do you see this benefiting the citizens, the common man?
Well, it's really for all residents. And what it does is that it's not only an ID, it's the world's first digital online ID. So this works online. It works on the internet, on your smartphone, or wherever you are. So it allows your ID to be verified at a point of service. So you go to a bank to withdraw your money.
Right.
You go to buy a mobile connection. You go to the public distribution system to get access to your rations. At all those points, you can use this ID verification, or you go to get an LPG connection. So it essentially makes it easier for people to access all kinds of services, and different agencies can build new applications on this, which is why it's the foundation. So there will be more over time, more and more applications will emerge which run on this platform.
Right, but like we see in our country, most new ideas are usually opposed at first and then reluctantly incorporated. Did you find any such challenges to its implementation, or you must be continuing to find challenges?
Sure, I mean there are always everybody may not agree, and there will always be some people who may oppose it on different ground. But fundamentally, I think there's huge support, and the best support that is there, which validates this, is the common man himself, because across the country we have something like 30,000 enrollment stations, all of which have crowds of people coming in to enroll.
Right.
So the very fact that and every day we get 1 million people or 10 lakh people enrolling on a daily basis across the country in 30,000 locations. So the sheer numbers itself proves the popularity of the idea.
But the sheer magnitude of this project must have brought forth a lot more challenges than its mere implementation. What
oh yeah, this project is the world's largest biometric database, and when it's completed, it will be 10 times larger than anything else in the world. It uses the most sophisticated technology. It uses what's called as multimodal biometrics. We take all the 10 fingerprints and the iris of both the eyes. So use two different modes. And we essentially make sure that a person gets only one number, which means that we have to check your biometrics against everybody else that we have and make sure it's not a duplicate. So it requires a massive
So none of those fake duplicate passports that we see in films.
Yeah,
where
we'll
you can just
basically, ultimately, you'll have only one ID.
Yes.
And therefore, if you use the ID, you'll only get one passport and stuff
So
like
you
that.
were the right man for the job with your technology background and everything. This is
I guess that's why they called me to do this. But just to say that the project was already conceived in government. So when I come along, the idea was there. The cabinet had approved the idea. They were just looking for someone to actually, take charge of it and execute it.
Right. Now you have spent many, many years in the private sector, and now you're part of the government sector. So what are the differences that you've experienced between these two sectors, and how do you think both of them can learn from each other, really?
Sure, I think there were actually many things that changed for me. I was working in the private sector. I joined the government, as you said. I moved from Bangalore, where I've been living for the last 25, 30 years, to Delhi for the first time. And I also moved from an established organization to essentially doing a startup in the government. I was the first employee of this organization. So it's not just doing a startup, but a startup inside government. So it's given me a huge exposure to what life works. How it works. And I think it's been a very big learning for me, because in the private sector, it's still you work within the confines of your company. You take decisions with your management team, with your board, your shareholders, and so on. In the public space, it's a much wider canvas. You're dealing with the common man, the residents of the country. You're dealing with the government, the bureaucracy, the media, activists, the judicial system.
A whole lot more.
So a lot more stakeholders are involved, and a lot more opinions are there. And therefore, to be able to figure out how to sort of navigate through that
and marry everyone together and get the job done.
Have a consensus path which by and large people agree to, and then implement that. That's the new learning that I've got in the last almost 4 years since I've been here. 4 years now. That's right.
What's been more interesting?
Well, it's both very interesting. I mean, I was part of Infosys from day one. I worked there for 30 years.
That's
so
right.
Clearly, that was an experience of creating a world-class company from India. And this is about creating a project that makes difference to every Indian. So it's, both have been fantastic experiences for me.
And like I asked you before, what are the things one can learn from the other? I mean, what can the government?
Well, I think in the private sector, there's a the big focus on outcomes, essentially because all companies are measured by the same metrics. You increase your revenue, increase your sales, increase your profits, reduce your cost, stuff like that. So there's a simple metric to measure. But therefore the goal orientation is high. In government, the goals are a little more diffuse because there's no one definition of what is success.
But accountability seems to be a lot more, isn't it? Especially accountability to the
because
public.
you're publicly accountable. You're accountable to so many bodies. You're questioned by everybody. Everybody has the right to question you because you're a public servant.
That's right.
So that level of like a fish in a goldfish in a bowl kind of
glass
thing.
bowl, yeah.
So it's that kind of thing.
Right. Well, a lot of our viewers have not had the opportunity to read your book, Imagining India, where you've put forth a lot of ideas about India's future. Though it's difficult to sort of make a précis of that entire book, I'd love you to share a few ideas, with us, which our viewers can, imbibe. What is the future that you see and that you?
Well, my point in the book was that things change when people's mindset changes. So, and I talked about ideas that have changed. For example, when India became independent, entrepreneurship was not considered a great thing, but today we value entrepreneurs because they create jobs and so on.
Yes.
So that was one change in the minds of people.
That's right.
Secondly, we are a little hesitant about globalization because of the experience of imperialism. But now we are much more confident as our people go out, as our companies go out. Then I talk about how our attitude towards English has changed, and English is now seen as a language of aspiration, and every family is willing to sacrifice for the children's English education. Right. So I showed how ideas have changed in the minds, and how change in the society is a consequence of ideas changing. And then I talk about other ideas that have yet to be implemented. For example, urbanization again was resisted. Now, we have cities like Delhi, it's very much on. So then I talk about challenges of the future like environment and energy. It's a lot of stuff. And maybe too long actually.
That's true. But what's interesting is that you've outlined a safety net of ideas, which is going to take India to some dramatic second phase of development, which sounds like something everyone wants to believe right now. Because,
Sure. Well, I try to develop a way of looking at the challenges because otherwise everything is all mixed up and murky and all that.
That's right.
So I just try to put a framework of looking at, and it's still valid. I wrote this book about 5 years back,
but it still
the
works.
ideas are very much the same. I mean, they're still valid.
Everyone who doesn't have a book should go and pick up their copy.
Thank you.
But honestly speaking, and somewhere in the book you've written that your only objective is to be the objective of change. So obviously you're a person who really believes in bringing about change and stuff like that. So if one were to count on the fingers of your left hand, what were the 5 things you'd like to see change about India?
Well, I think, first of all, I think India has got tremendous potential because, as I argue in the book also,
That's right.
we're very fortunate that we are experiencing what is called as a demographic dividend, where, less new babies are being born as birth rates fall. So what happens at that time is the bulk of the population is in the working age, they're between 15 and 60.
They're most productive.
Most productive. So in a society, it does its best when it's most productive, when people are in that age, because more people work and less people, have to be supported. So to make that happen, we need to do the best with our human capital. So that's about education, that's about giving them access to jobs, it's about improving infrastructure, it's about creating mobility for them.
You really make us want to believe you, and we need you to tell us that it will happen.
It will happen. It's there'll be a few bumps on the way, but it'll happen.
You also mentioned very interestingly that you belong to the bridging generation, which neither is the old and not the new. So what is it that this bridging generation, what does it think of? What is the philosophy of this bridging?
Well, I think, we were the generation that transitioned from a much more socialistic economy to a much more market liberal economy. So I think we grew up in an era when it was much more socialism and government, and then we sort of matured in an era when enterprise was more respected. So I think that was the point that I was making. Whereas the young people today never saw that part of it. So they only grew up in.
What about the values that the old have left behind, which could easily be incorporated?
Sure, but whenever there is change of this type, you can't guarantee that all the values will be brought forth. But I think the young people are very aspirational. They're very ambitious. They want they want a country to do well. So I'm sure there are a lot of very idealistic people there too.
Great. So lots more questions coming your way. Primarily the first one being that Delhi is the state that really pioneered the Aadhaar card scheme, and how successful has the adoption of the Aadhaar scheme been in Delhi?
Well, Delhi has been has had a leadership role in the implementation of Aadhaar. I think very fortunate that the Chief Minister, Mrs. Dixit herself, has been driving this. I go often for review meetings where she really gets into all the details with all the departments. And we have enrolled we issued actually 1.3 crore Aadhaar numbers in Delhi alone.
Wow,
and it's almost close to the entire population. So in the next few months, you'll see everybody being covered. So that's been a huge push. Then Delhi also has been the leader in direct benefit transfer, and all the government schemes in Delhi, they propose to use this direct benefit transfer.
Right.
So I think Delhi has been one of our really stellar partners in the rollout of Aadhaar.
That's right. And as you just mentioned, in fact, I want to tell everyone that in Delhi, benefits under various schemes were already being transferred directly to People's Bank, but Delhi is the first state to adopt the Aadhaar-based cash transfer scheme, primarily among the...
Well, one of the big things in Delhi has been the Annashri program, and we had a big launch of that in December with the chairperson of the UPA and Chief Minister and myself and others. And beneficiaries have been credited money electronically into the bank account. Wonderful. And that more and more people are getting added every day. So I think it's been a very, very important thing, and we are very happy and delighted to partner the state of Delhi on Aadhaar rollout.
And in terms of the perception from the common man, do you have feedback that they feel that this has really benefited them?
Oh, I believe so. I mean, I think so. And also one more thing that has happened in Delhi is that the Delhi government has required Aadhaar for various things like, marriage and
marriage certificates.
And renting a house.
This should make people
all
really
of a sudden I get frantic phone calls from some friend of mine who's about to get married and find that he needs an Aadhaar kind of thing. But I think it's been going well. But what is really exciting to me is that not only the the sort of the middle class residents of Delhi, but especially the people who are here working in homes or working as drivers, people or migrants from other states. They are the ones who really want Aadhaar a lot. So we get a huge amount of demand for that. And so across Delhi, we have close to 450 enrollment points where people are getting enrolled.
So say somebody who doesn't belong to Delhi or is not domiciled, so to speak, in Delhi can also get their Aadhaar card?
Yes, Aadhaar, the system is designed for anywhere, anytime enrollment. So you could be from some other state and you might be living in some other state and you can go and enroll there. That we have designed it in that way to make it much more convenient for people to enroll. The reason we are able to do that is because of the back end, our technology is able to detect duplicates. So even if you enroll here and go back to your village and enroll, we'll be able to catch it at the back.
Something like this, I mean, completely off my track, but this also has ramifications in curbing things like corruption and crime, isn't it? Because the moment everyone knows that the...
Well, you know, those kind of things will take some time. You know, we'll have to get to ubiquitous coverage. Everybody has to be there. But certainly, for example, once we do the kind of unnecessary payments, what happens is the money goes straight into the bank account. And then there'll be a network of what are called as business correspondents.
I see.
Which will be in different areas and shops and this and that. And the person who gets the money can go to any business correspondent to withdraw their money. So that automatically means that their access to money becomes very convenient.
Correct.
And therefore that reduces potential corruption. So it has a lot of such benefits.
Wow, sounds exciting already. Now, I do believe that 9 centrally sponsored schemes are already Aadhaar enabled. How many more do you think are going to come into its ambit?
Well, the central government has selected about 26 schemes, and some of them are, many of them are rural schemes, so they may not apply to Delhi. But apart from those schemes, they're looking at things like LPG, you know, for the cash transfer for LPGs, kerosene. So lots of stuff will come down the pike.
Eventually, or in the...
Well, all this is happening now, but you know, this is actually a major re-engineering of government processes. You know, you have to have a digital list of beneficiaries, you have to put Aadhaar numbers, you have to have bank accounts. There's a lot of preparatory work for that. But once you do it, then it's just automatic. You just keep pressing a button and the money goes to the account.
Wow. Okay, so I'd like the audience to know that having an Aadhaar card today is mandatory for accessing a number of government services like the registration of property, obtaining certificates like Mr. Nilekani just said, marriage registration. How do you think this is going to make service delivery more efficient?
Well, you know, it's an online ID. So when you have an online ID, I can verify you anywhere online and then give you a service. So suddenly your service may not be limited to just going to a government department. It could be in any outlet. Okay. It could be any location. It could, and therefore you can suddenly, instead of making the common man come to the government, we can take service to the common man. So that's a huge transitional shift that you can achieve using technology. Because once you have an ID that can be verified anywhere, the service can be provided anywhere.
It's just going to simplify the lives of people.
That's the goal. That's the whole purpose of that. The other important thing which has happened in Delhi is Delhi government has been very, very progressive about social inclusion. You know, they have this Mission Convergence project.
Correct.
Then they have this organization called DUSIB, which does a lot of work on inclusion. And there are partners in Delhi, and working with them, we are making sure that the really disenfranchised folks, the people who are homeless, the people who are, you know, come to the shelters, all those people are enrolled. So social inclusion has been a big part of the drive in Delhi state.
That sounds absolutely fantastic. In Delhi today, the government has adopted the e-court fee, e-stamping, e-sub-registrar offices, and especially e-SLA, where the government is bound to deliver services within a fixed time period and which can be tracked online, failing which they can be penalized. I mean, that sounds almost too good to be true, isn't it?
Well, there's the, I don't know what the act is, but yes, that's idea is to have accountability on services.
Wow. So you've always sort of championed the cause of using information technology for governance. I mean, you've been speaking about it for a while. Do you think that these steps are actually going to make the life of the average citizen a lot easier?
Oh, absolutely. Let's take Anushree, which has been rolled out. Those people who have been paid so far, and there are going to be many more in the coming weeks, are getting money electronically into the bank account automatically, just coming electronically through some, you know, computers hitting the bank account. If they have a mobile phone,
money orders. No more money orders.
And they don't go anywhere. And you know, they can get an SMS on their mobile phone, and nowadays everybody has a mobile phone.
That's right.
Saying the money has come, and then they can go to any business correspondent, anyone, to withdraw their money at any time of their choice. I mean, you can't get better than that.
It doesn't get better than that. You're right. We are with the man behind the concept of the Aadhaar card, Mr. Nandan Nilekani. He has been on the board of the governors for the Indian Council for Research on International Economic Relations. And now let's find out what is the special bond that exists between him and Delhi. Though we do know you've been a Bangalore boy, but and of course all over the world. How, if I were to ask you how to describe Delhi in one word or one sentence, what would it be?
Oh, I think it's so diverse. So it's you know, I've been here now 3 years and 9 months, and for the first 1 year I was living in a hotel because I had to get this project off the ground, and then I've been living in a house since then. So it's really been a wonderful experience for me. I think Delhi has so much to offer, and of course one thing with Bangaloreans is you get spoiled by the weather.
Yes.
You know, you get great weather around the thing. So when you come here, you have all these changes, but then I think you have to treat that also as a positive experience, the fact that you have all these seasonal changes. So it's been a wonderful experience for me, very many diverse things that I've experienced here.
So what is the one place in Delhi that's probably closest to your heart, where you?
Well, I think I see Delhi's greenery as something amazing. I think Delhi has far more greenery and far more parks. You know, I go to Lodi Garden, Nehru Park, Sanjay One, all that.
Right.
So I think that really makes it so much different. And I don't think any other city has that kind of. And that's all happened. A lot of that has happened in the last few years. You know, the investments in these parks, the ridge getting developed. So I think it's really great to see how Delhi is just getting greener and greener by the day.
That was my next question, that over the years when you've traveled in and out of Delhi, what are the changes that you've seen in the city?
Well, one is of course the greenery going up. Then I think infrastructure always keeps improving. I think, you know, every time you land there's something happening, some bridges getting built, some flyovers getting done. I think the Delhi Metro has been an amazing experience. I use it always to go to Chandni Chowk.
Oh, Chandni Chowk, it seems to be the favorite destination for everyone.
Get there to go to Kareem's and have some, you know, biryani or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think it's really nice to see the city. It's really becoming a really international world city.
Yeah, that we were talking about Kareem's and biryani. So I thought, you know, why not ask you what are the favorite eating joints in Delhi that you enjoy the most?
Yeah, I like to go to all these, you know.
Are you a foodie?
Yeah, I'm a foodie. yeah.
Okay, that's great. Okay, if there was something that you could change about Delhi, what would that be?
The weather. But I can't change that.
So says the man from Bangalore.
Yeah, so but I guess that's not something that governments can change. No, but I think it's obviously a city where everybody is getting along.
Yeah.
So it's not as laid back as I'm used to. So that sometimes, you know, you have to get used to that. But overall, I think it's really a city on the move. I think on every dimension, I think the quality of intellectual discussion in think tanks here, the businesses here are becoming much more sophisticated. There's so much diversity in art and culture. There's a profusion of events that you can go to. You're actually spoiled by the number of events. So I think in all ways, it's quite a city.
Okay, so how many years more do you think you'll be around?
Well, I've done it's a 5-year commitment for me. So I'm done about 3 years and 9 months. I have a few more months, maybe a little over a year left.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Nilekani, for sharing your time with us, and thank you so much for sparing, you know, your insights into what you've been doing, and the audience as well. And well, the wonderful, ambitious project of the Unique Identification Authority of India. जाते जाते एक सवाल आपसे मैं पूछना चाहूँगी, आपने आधार कार्ड बनवा लिया?
हाँ, जरूर।
बन गया आपका?
मैं पहले बनाया।
Okay, तो आप भी जाके बनवा लीजिए, and with that, this is Mini Mathur and Dilli Dilse saying alvida.
Delhi is my home, this is where I belong. हौसले हम में कुछ कर दिखाने के, रुके ना रुके हम, रुके ना रुके हम, सलामत रहे, तू रोशन रहे, है सब